Over a lifetime, there are only 4 or 5 moments that really matter. Moments when you're offered a choice to make a sacrifice, conquer a flaw, save a friend, spare an enemy. In these moments, everything else falls away. The way the world sees us. The way we... Why?
Daredevil Born Again didn't save Daredevil. It jump-started his heart and killed him again by ruining nearly every element of the original show that made the storytelling so good. I wanted a good continuation of the original, not 1/10 the quality of the original. So as far as I'm concerned, Daredevil is dead to me. The first episode opens with Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige heading to Josie's, and when they arrive, Foggy tries to make moves on a new character.
Oh my god, he did it.
Foggy?
Yes.
No.
He does not have the game for Kirsten Duffy.
Remember when Daredevil Season 3 heavily implied that Foggy and Marcy were going to get married?
I'm serious. Let's go to the courthouse right now.
But when you propose, I want it to be from your heart, not from this.
I was starting to like the idea of being married to the DA.
There was a dedicated setup to Foggy and Marcy's relationship throughout the original series, so it comes across as if this show forgot about her entirely when Foggy is randomly making moves on someone else. They don't even address Marcy in the show, so any setups involving her character are ultimately meaningless without an explanation whatsoever. Afterwards, we see Foggy getting a call from Benny regarding threats to his life.
You're not listening, man. There's someone downstairs. Coming for me. Calm down.
Matt questions him on why he'd withhold such information from Matt.
After that thing in Red Hook, he said he was getting threats, so I stashed him.
Why didn't you tell me about the threats?
I thought it was Benny being Benny. I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't want to give you an excuse.
That sounds to me like Foggy is against involving Matt because it would give him an excuse to be Daredevil. But the thing is, Foggy already believes the threats are credible, seeing that he let Benny crash at his apartment.
It's a secure building, Benny. You're safe. Paranoid. He's probably high.
Why would Foggy assume this if Benny was being hit with threats that Foggy believed were real? Real enough for him to bring Benny into his apartment? Why would giving Matt an excuse to be Daredevil stop him from alerting Matt about the threats? If there was an actual threat, Benny would have thought to call Foggy because he's depending on him. Foggy has already accepted Matt's help as Daredevil and understands his necessity to their work. This is something that Foggy has grown to accept over the course of 3 seasons.
Step 1, we work together. We come up with a plan, and step 3, we execute that plan. Someone who knows the details of Fisk terminal operation.
Oh, we find someone who has everything to lose. Obviously, I'm here to help you.
I can't trust anybody.
You saved Karen Page's life tonight, so I owe you one.
And what's even better is that Daredevil has become within the confines of the law by this point. The Accords being repealed was the basis for Matt's defense for his client aiding superheroes.
Making suits exclusively for superheroes necessitates anonymity. May I remind you that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed.
It's a bad look already that Foggy treats Benny's safety with little urgency and presents a sudden and uncharacteristic distrust for Daredevil.
I thought it was Benny being Benny.
He says this, but then follows up with his actual reasoning.
Maybe I didn't want to give you an excuse.
Foggy would rather lie to Matt about why he didn't warn him about the threats, as opposed to sending him immediately to help out with the one being threatened.
Foggy, he wanted to know where you were. I'm sorry.
This implies that Benny gave up Foggy's location due to his life being threatened. Why is Foggy staying here? Why isn't he trying to get to safety? Both him and Karen are in danger if someone is out to kill him. He's literally just standing there trying to call Benny as opposed to evacuating while he tries to reach him. Getting Karen to bring the police would have been the safer option. Warn Cherry about it since he's a cop right now who is sitting with another cop in the show. This is apparently how Foggy gets killed off immediately, early into the show before we can even hear about how his life has been since Daredevil Season 3. We have little to no insight on his relationships with people, whether it be Marcy, his family, his friends. Marcy and his family don't even show up at the court hearing regarding his death. We never see any of their reactions to it. Foggy doesn't even get to do anything notable in the show, something that makes his character stand out. He's simply killed off before we've even reached 10 minutes of material, and we didn't even get a follow-up or a funeral to respect who he was. It's one of the most unceremonious ways to kill off a prominent character. Daredevil then shows shows up to fight Bullseye, who is responsible for shooting Foggy. Dex's motivations may be confusing by this point, but I'd rather give a later episode a chance to elaborate on that. From what I can tell, Dex wanted to escape after shooting Foggy. He randomly decides to go up on this roof to avoid Daredevil, and seemingly wants to reach the ladder to the fire escape. It's a pretty weird plan to go out of your way to walk up the stairs just to use the fire escape to go downstairs as a means of escape. Daredevil will chase him no matter what, so I don't see what this would achieve. Dex is certainly running into plenty of civilians on his way up, who he could easily use as hostages if he ever needed to stall Daredevil. Killing them is unnecessary and gives him no means of leverage over Daredevil. Dex was a highly skilled FBI agent who would understand procedures involving hostages. He knows Daredevil's sense of morality and would know to exploit this, but apparently he only retained 1/10 of his intelligence over the years. Daredevil randomly throws Dex through a wall where we literally see a person gets knocked down because of this. What makes it worse is that Matt knows people are there because of his senses. He would have known this could hurt or kill people, and when Dex leaves, Matt directs Cherry to help these people. Now Matt would know where Dex is headed, but he doesn't immediately chase after him. He listens to Dex get close to people, kill them, and shows up late to actually follow Dex. Matt hears Foggy's heartbeat fade away, cementing the fact that he died. He screams at Dex and tosses him off a building with the intent to kill him, which breaks his no-kill rule that he has spent years developing in the original show.
Well, boo-hoo, let me tell you something, buddy. Everybody's lost someone. Doesn't mean you have to do this.
Though he has struggled with this in the past, he ultimately overcame those struggles. The point of our characters growing is for them to learn and do better moving forward. In Daredevil Season 1, Fisk revealed to Matt that he had Elena Cardenas killed in order to get to Daredevil, knowing this would emotionally trigger him.
You've demonstrated an emotional weakness for children. Women, I assume that would extend to the elderly. So I baited the hook.
You took her alive just to get my attention. I'm gonna kill you.
While Matt wanted to kill Fisk in anger, Matt was younger and more conflicted on his rules and religious beliefs. Matt saw Fisk as the devil, and even in that situation, he was conflicted on if he should compromise his rule against killing. He only attempted it in the heat of anger.
I went to visit someone close to the devil. Not to hurt her, just to get a sense of him, of who he is, and what it would take to do what I have to. I know my soul is damned if I take his life. If I let him consume this city, all the people will suffer and die.
The question you have to ask yourself, are you struggling with the fact that you don't want to kill this man, but have to? Or that you don't have to kill him, but want to? I don't believe you went to see this woman for insight into how to kill a man. Maybe you went looking for a reason not to.
But we know that Matt has grown past this, because he chose to spare Fisk at the end of Season 1. He didn't give in to his anger. His belief in preserving life has been reaffirmed, and he passes this on to others as he moves forward in life.
Really, you never think for 1 second, shit, I just killed a human being. A human being who did a lot of stupid shit, maybe even evil, but had one small piece of goodness in him. And then you come along and that one tiny flicker of light gets snuffed out forever. I live in the real world, too, and I've seen it.
What have you seen?
Redemption, Frank. It's real, and it's possible.
With all of this context, Daredevil Season 3 had a very important job. A major element of this season was Matt disproving Frank's point that Matt is one bad day away from being just like him. And in order to challenge Matt on his position, Matt needs a reason to want to kill Fisk, even after sparing him in Season 1. Season 3 was responsible for answering one question: why would he change? In order to justify Matt's change, the season challenges why he doesn't kill by challenging his Catholic beliefs. It challenges his trust in God's plan. Matt's abilities were taken from him out of the blue when he saw this as his God-given purpose, a part of his plan to help other people.
Why did you become a nun?
I heard God's call.
So you feel like being a nun is what you're meant to be. What if you couldn't be one anymore? If it were taken from you? I used to listen to people's prayers. I thought that God let me hear the prayers so that I could answer. So that's what I did. That's what I was trying to do. But I am not what I was. When I heard all those prayers, all those suffering people, I thought it was God's voice. But I was wrong. All I ever heard was people in pain. And all he ever gave any of us was silence.
If Matt's Catholic beliefs were put into question, then it only makes sense that his belief in redemption for everyone would be put into question as well.
Matt's Matt because he believes that everyone deserves a shot at redemption.
Except Fisk.
Everyone. It's a Catholic thing. That's why he doesn't kill people.
And while Matt generally maintains his rule against killing, he has a very specific reason for why he wants to make an exception with Fisk.
We put him in prison, Foggy. Look what happened.
Matt firmly believes that the law and Catholicism aren't practical answers on how to stop Fisk, because when he tried that, Fisk returned to hurt more people and continued to game the system. What gives him the right to choose his clean morality over the lives of the many he believes will be lost?
Everything that's happened since you refused to kill me is on you.
The reason this change in Matt's character works is because it's based on newer challenges to his beliefs. It calls for him to think differently and reconsider his motivations, but Matt finds a way to regain his faith in the system and Catholicism, so this change in his character won't stick in the long run. He regains his faith in the law and continues his work with Foggy and Karen. He regains his faith in God's plan and how his role as Daredevil plays a part in that.
How could a loving God blind me? Anyway, he told me God's plan is like a beautiful tapestry. And the tragedy of being human is that we only get to see it from the back. We only get a hint at the true beauty that would be revealed if we could see the whole pattern on the other side, as God does. I realized that if my life had turned out any differently, that I would never have become Daredevil. And although people have died on my watch, people who shouldn't have, there are countless others that have lived. Maybe it is all part of God's plan. Maybe my life has been exactly as it had to be. If Father Lantom had an enemy, I would say it was fear. For me personally, he spent many years trying to get me to face my own fears, to understand how they enslaved me, how they divided me from the people that I love, counseled me to transcend my fears, be brave enough to forgive, and see the possibilities of being a man without fear. It was his legacy. And now it's up to all of us to live up to it.
If that element of Matt's character is fixed, then his reasons to believe in preserving all life will only be strengthened. And this scene where he shares his revelation with Maggie is after Matt chose to spare Fisk, even when Fisk was responsible for killing Father Lantom.
You don't get to destroy who I am!
And what's interesting here is that Bullseye was the one who specifically killed Father Lantom, yet Daredevil didn't try to kill him in the final fight. He was thinking of killing Fisk. Even when we look back at the church fight, there is a point where Matt could go all out on Bullseye while he's down and remain laser focused on murdering him. But that's not what he wants. He stands up while he believed Dex was down, meaning he didn't try to make sure Dex was dead, even in the heat of battle. At no point did Matt state intentions to kill Dex like he did with Fisk, nor does he specifically position himself to kill Dex like he does here with Fisk. It's because Matt's reasoning to consider killing in this season is less personal and driven by anger like what we see in Season 1. It's more so about whether or not more will suffer as a product of him sparing Fisk, and even in the fight itself, Matt is refusing to let Dex kill Fisk and Vanessa. In fact, Matt goes out of his way to protect Vanessa. There's also a point where Dex is focused on trying to stab Fisk, completely disregarding Daredevil right now. If it wasn't Daredevil's heart to be a killer, he would have let Dex finish the job and go for the kill on Fisk. But what you do in the heat of the moment speaks volumes about what's in your nature, and Matt chose to stop Dex. The most he can do is position himself to kill Fisk, but he can never truly make the attempt to kill him. Matt Murdock is not a killer, and this is one of the many defining moments that tell you this. As talked about earlier, Matt grew from this experience and it only strengthened his core beliefs in the end. And in order for Matt to consider compromising his beliefs, we need heavy and direct challenges to his outlook on life, as a Catholic, as a lawyer, and as a vigilante. With all of that context, what justifies the writing decision for Matt to undercut his character development by trying to kill Dex? There was nothing meaningfully done to challenge Matt's beliefs like what I've talked about earlier regarding Season 3. All that happened was that Dex killed Foggy. Dex killed Father Lantom, and Matt didn't even try to kill him. And Matt learned from those experiences. He's supposed to have more wisdom by this point because of his development. Matt Murdock is heavily character assassinated in the first 15 minutes of this show. He proceeds to unmask himself so that Sherry could find out his identity, because apparently tragedy makes it so that Matt needs to be a moron now, even though Matt fought relentlessly and strategically right after Father Lantom died. So I don't believe he'd be stupid enough to unmask himself, thus making it more likely for his loved ones to be killed. He then throws his mask off the building so that he can't retrieve it. Guess I'll remember that every time I see the falling mask in the intro.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Now, as a product of Matt crossing this line, alongside the death of Foggy, Matt has quit being Daredevil for good.
Why did you stop being a vigilante?
My best friend was killed. The line was crossed. I felt like I lost the privilege. And despite the good that I was doing, I was
causing damage.
This adds an additional layer to Matt's character assassination. I don't care if he lost his best friend or that he tried to kill someone. Matt would not quit. Daredevil is what Matt believes to be his God-given purpose and his way of delivering justice to people when the law fails them. And this is despite facing numerous tragedies in his life.
What are you gonna do about Daredevil?
I made a promise to myself that I'd let the system handle it. All of it.
This is not a good motivation.
What happened to all that talk about going after him through the system?
Sometimes the law isn't enough. Before the accident, I'd lay awake at night, listening to the sirens. I like to put stories to them, try and figure out what they were for. Ambulance or cops, robbery or fire, I don't know, just a stupid game. But after I lost my sight, after my abilities developed, I realized how many sirens there actually were. How much this city suffered every single night. For years, I buried my head and turned away. Then, one night, I heard it. A little girl, crying in her bed in a building down the block. Her father liked to go to her room late at night when his wife was asleep. I called child services, like you're supposed to. But the mom, she wouldn't believe it. And the dad, he was smart. He made sure what he did, how he did it, didn't leave a mark. Well, I couldn't do anything to help that little girl, but I could. What do you think's gonna happen if I give up now, Foggy? Who's gonna stop Fisk?
The law?
Tell that to Elena. If you could have put on a mask and prevented what happened to her, telling me you wouldn't have.
It's not fair, man.
We don't live in a world that's fair. We live in this one.
You're not going to stop.
Not until this city is safe from people like Fisk.
If I take a night off, people get hurt. You're in a unique position to do some real good. Jen Walters can use the law to help people when society fails them. She-Hulk can help people when the law fails them. Can, if you choose.
Be the best of both worlds.
I'm Daredevil. Not even God can stop that now.
And it doesn't matter that Matt tried to kill Dex. That's not a convincing reason for Matt to try to quit either, because Matt believes in redemption, even for himself. He believed in Elektra throughout Season 2, even though she tried to get Matt to kill the guy who killed his father, someone that Matt also refused to kill, and Elektra has been a trained killer for years to come. Matt believed in her capacity for good in spite of this. He saw this in The Punisher too, who left men hanging on meat hooks.
Yeah, nobody got hurt or didn't deserve it.
Matt tried to kill Kingpin in Season 1, but he refused to stop being Daredevil, even when Foggy pointed out why he was wrong. Matt believes that he actually killed Nobu by accident, but he still continued to be Daredevil. Matt was going to kill Fisk, but he didn't let that stop him from growing and doing better moving forward. Because if he isn't Daredevil, if he fails his God-given purpose, many lives will be lost and people will suffer. The only potentially good reason for this is that Matt also says that he was causing damage, but that's not elaborated on in the show. The most damage he did was almost killed Dex, and even when Matt faced self-doubt in Season 1 because Claire was hurt, which he blamed himself for, Claire pushes him forward by reinforcing why Matt does this to begin with.
Never thought that I'd be putting anyone else at risk. Nothing's changing out there. No matter what I do, I'm making things worse.
So that's the boy you saved from the Russians, or all the other people you've helped.
And what about the people I've gotten to hurt? What do I...
Feel my heart. What is it telling you?
That you're scared.
And I am not alone, but you can do something about it. For all of us.
Why would he change? Matt Murdock is broken as a character already. It doesn't work.
Daredevil, I'm so sorry.
And after Foggy died, Matt's law firm is now reduced to Murdock and McDuffie, but no Karen Page.
Have you heard from her?
I have not, no.
But then, they eventually meet up again, and Matt tries to reconnect with her after such a long disconnect.
Can we go somewhere? Maybe grab a cup of coffee or something?
I don't think so, Matt. I don't really want to do that.
You tell me, Karen. What do you expect me to do here? What do I need to do to have a conversation with you? I've tried calling, I've left messages.
No, I know. You're right. I just was busy.
Well, don't give me busy. I can't.
My friend died too, Matt. And then I lost you. You didn't talk to me for weeks.
Karen Page is also character assassinated. Matt supposedly not talking to her for weeks is not a good reason for her to ignore Matt when he's ready to start talking again, and outright refuse to connect with him again. Daredevil Season 3 made the opposite point about Karen's character. She had to deal with Matt lying about his own death for months.
When's the last time you heard from Matt Murdock?
Months.
Yes, Karen was thinking of leaving Matt behind and held a grudge, but she changed, and this season explained why.
Has Matt been a shitty friend lately? Without a doubt. The way he's been treating us lately is on him. Us turning our backs would be on us. People have bailed on Matt his whole life, and I'm not gonna be one of them.
Everyone in Matthew's life abandoned him, including me. When someone in need tries to push you away, you have to find the strength to hold on tighter.
Both Foggy and Maggie understood the importance of never letting go of Matt. Foggy knows about Matt's abandonment issues, and Maggie knows she was one of them, hence why she tried to make up for it by being there for Matt and convincing his friends to do the same. This is why Karen grows in the season.
Look, I was never gonna leave you up there, and I'm not leaving you now.
Neither will Foggy. Despite the fact that you've been a complete asshole to him, I'd still follow you over a cliff.
Karen would never leave Matt like this and hold it against him a year later when Matt is trying to make amends for his absence.
They'll be watching my bank accounts.
We'll cover it.
But it might be more than I deserve.
Look, you hurt people. Doesn't have to define you.
I refuse to believe that a tragedy had to destroy everything.
But it did.
That's not what Karen believes. She would believe that Matt's mistake of not talking to her for weeks does not have to define him 1 year later, when he's trying to catch up with her and fix what happened. Why would she change? Just like with Matt, this episode has undone Karen's character development and thus has assassinated her character.
I can't do this alone. I can't take another step.
You're not alone. You never were.
Another problem with her character is that she doesn't actually care that Matt has quit being Daredevil.
What are you gonna do about Daredevil?
I'm not him anymore.
And you think that will help?
Doesn't make it worse.
No, Karen, please don't.
Take care of yourself, man.
Goodbye.
Matt refuses to be Daredevil again, and Karen makes no attempt to convince Matt that he's wrong. She doesn't talk to Matt about his history and what he has done for people to reaffirm why Daredevil was so important. She leaves the conversation when Matt wants her to stay and refuses to support him. And there's a pretty big reason for why she should want Daredevil to come back. Fisk is out of prison and is soon to win the mayoral election. Fisk even being out of prison should be a problem for her, but I guess she wants to leave back to California so quickly instead of making any effort to take action, when this is antithetical to her character in the original show.
Union Allied, they offered me money if I sign an agreement to never talk about what happened. They killed Danny. They tried to kill me.
Let it go.
I've tried. It just doesn't feel right. They have to pay for what they've done.
They won't listen.
We'll make them listen.
Why isn't anyone looking into this?
Count the angels on the head of a pin and move on.
So they just shuffle some papers and all this disappears. There has to be a trail and everything is being liquidated.
The only way I'll ever feel safe again is if the people that you are talking about are put away.
He is standing on City Hall with his cronies like he has already won. We can't let him get away with this.
She even went as far to lie to Ben about why they were at a senior citizen shelter, worried that he'd say no because of how important it is to stop Fisk.
I'm sorry, Ben. I needed you. You're right. I should have told you.
Then why didn't you?
I was afraid you'd say no. This isn't a story. This is people's lives. If we don't do something, Fisk is gonna win.
Give the byline to Mason. I don't give a shit about credit on this. What I give a shit about is Fisk getting out of prison. I have to do something about this. So don't tell me to back off, because I won't.
Karen would rather die than allow Fisk to be exonerated.
You were supposed to go away, Miss Page. You're going to convince Mr. Urich that you were wrong, that Wilson Fisk is a good man.
Rather die first.
Even if Matt was still going to quit being Daredevil, Karen would still help.
I am not going to sit here and wait for Matt to come to his senses. Fisk is out and he has to be stopped.
If Fisk stays out of prison, a lot of innocent people are gonna die.
All of this context makes how Karen behaves in Born Again indisputably out of character. Wilson Fisk is about to become mayor, and she won't do anything about it. This is a problem for a lot of characters as well. Obviously, this extends to Matt because he has no reason to quit being Daredevil. And it's even worse when you consider that Matt has connections to She-Hulk, who has connections to the Hulk, who has connections to the Avengers. I will go as far to say that Matt would contact Jen to get the Avengers to disavow Fisk and remind the public of his crimes just to ensure that Fisk can't become mayor and that his crimes aren't forgotten. He would do anything to prevent Fisk from hurting more people. Also, She-Hulk has connections to Wong, so if Matt simply wanted a favor from Wong when he's available, he could just ask for it through Jen. And remember Mitchell, Karen and Ben's boss from the Bulletin? Where is he in the show and why is he unheard of?
This fight belongs to every person in Hell's Kitchen, so I intend to keep fighting.
What about Officer Mahoney, or all those comps he spoke of?
You guys aren't alone in this, you understand? Just put a lot of my brothers and sisters in the ground, and none of us have forgotten that.
All those casualties will be forgotten.
If you can find a way to bring down that son of a bitch, every cop in the city's gonna have your back.
What did Nadim's sacrifice even accomplish if it didn't keep Fisk in prison or at least prevent him from gaming the system to become mayor?
All those casualties will be forgotten.
Not to mention Blake Tower, someone who boosted his election campaign by taking down Fisk?
Well, the state of New York isn't gonna make the same mistake. Everyone knows his game now.
All those casualties will be forgotten.
Fisk won't manipulate the system again.
The way you stood up to Wilson Fisk was an inspiration to us all.
Not to mention that the city hated Fisk ever since he tried to get out of prison.
The entire world's about to forget.
All those casualties.
Not to mention that Fisk was on Hawkeye's radar. He's literally one of the original Avengers.
Well, that's the guy I've been worried about this whole time. Kingpin. I'm not going anywhere until this is finished.
There is literally a video that Hawkeye has of Fisk's illegal activity.
What can I help you with, Eleanor? We've had a good relationship, haven't we, Wilson?
Yeah,
I've never asked questions. I've always done what was told.
what I'd expect when there's a debt.
I handled Armand like you asked. My fiance is taking the fall for Sloan, but my daughter, that's where I draw the line.
There are no lines in this business.
And that is why I have to leave this business. I want you to know that I have been keeping an insurance policy, copies of everything in a safe place.
And more importantly, the cops were after him as a result of his crimes.
He's not here. He's gone.
Wilson Fisk is a wanted man. What could he have even done to game the system to become mayor? Hawkeye is an Avenger. He alone has so much influence and has refused to stop until this was finished. Why didn't he make a statement? Why didn't he have his fellow superheroes make a statement? Why didn't he work with the Avengers to investigate Fisk any further? He put himself on Hawkeye's radar. Kate Bishop lives in New York. She would have seen this and tried to bring this to Hawkeye's attention if he somehow didn't know. And what's even more important to consider is that when Fisk was getting out of prison in Season 3, he was still under heavy restrictions. He remained under house arrest and was watched 24/7. He was only allowed privacy when speaking to his lawyer. He orchestrated the bad circumstances in Nadim's life in order to play him, while handing him privileged information to take down other criminals and seemingly save many lives. Fisk couldn't just game the system easily, he had to make use of very specific circumstances. And that failed, and now everybody is aware of his tactics and the city is against him, which cannot be said about the Avengers, who are loved by the entire world.
These days, you can be the smartest guy in the room, the most qualified, and no one cares unless you're flying around with a cape or shooting lasers from your hands. No one will even listen.
The Mayor Fisk plotline fundamentally doesn't work for the plot and world building, and character assassinates so many people in the process, and it goes against the themes of the original show because this essentially proves men like Matt and Foggy wrong while proving men like Fisk right.
That's the bullshit that people like Fisk want you to believe. Nobody's above the law.
By randomly ignoring the characters and the world building that would contribute to Fisk's failure to become the mayor, then inexplicably making Fisk the mayor, you're undermining the point that the third season wanted to make. Nobody is above the law, and if you stand by and let men like Fisk believe that, he will win. Karen doesn't care if Fisk becomes mayor. Matt doesn't care if he lets people die. Hawkeye doesn't care if his mission is unfinished. Kate Bishop doesn't care if the guy who tried to kill her runs the city she lives in. The city doesn't care that they've been lied to and abused by Fisk many times. Nobody cares about anything in this world, it seems. Just let the chaos ensue and take a holiday. You're saying the lives of a million New Yorkers are more important than my inaction?
Vigilantes, they run rampant. The cops are afraid. Bad cops will. They just don't care.
Marcy literally outlined that half the cops reposted a video supporting Foggy's stand against Fisk.
Half the cops in New York have reposted it to their personal accounts.
You know why Fisk was so desperate to frame Daredevil? Because the city needed a new villain in his eyes because Fisk was seen as the scapegoat.
Right now I am New York's scapegoat. The city needs a new villain.
Daredevil is seen as a hero. The Avengers are seen as heroes. Wilson Fisk was universally seen as the big villain. How did this change?
But SK, have you considered that Donald Trump was a convicted felon and is the president now? And he also avenged Arkham Batman.
I don't care. We don't have Daredevil in our universe. We don't have the Avengers. We don't live in a world where someone can sense deceit in your heartbeats or possess out-of-this-world tech or superpowers to investigate criminals. We don't have influential superheroes that will hold him accountable to get privileged information that regular law enforcement can't obtain. And even then, if a biopic were to be made about Donald Trump and how he got away with his crimes, we still need that explanation. You can't just write that in and not provide us with details. The Social Network is a biopic, but it still explains relevant information to us so we can follow the story instead of skipping over those explanations. Another thing I want to address about the world building is that when the Netflix Daredevil series was taking place, this was before the snap occurred. There would be a major shift in everybody's lives within Matt's circle, so it's at least worth addressing in the show to a meaningful capacity. Yet, the show never addresses who lived or died during the snap within the Nelson, Murdoch, and Page circle. It never addresses how their law firm was affected or their relationships with others. This show is meant to bridge the gap between Daredevil and Daredevil Born Again, yet it skips over important information worth addressing. We never got a clear insight as to how the Hell's Kitchen we saw in Daredevil has changed, or how the main characters and their lives we've seen before have changed in Daredevil Born Again. We were even given the most basic of world building in the first episode of Daredevil, when they talk about the events of Avengers 2012.
This office was barely touched by the incident, which is why it's on the market already.
The incident, is that what we're calling it now?
Well, it sounds so much better than death and destruction raining from the sky, nearly wiping Hell's Kitchen off the map.
The last 2 years have transformed the business.
Yeah, the world watched half of New York get destroyed. That's a lot of sympathy.
And Union Ally benefited from every dollar of it.
I know about Adam, Vanessa.
Do not kill him.
So, all of a sudden, Vanessa apparently had an affair with some random guy, despite her loyalty to Fisk being firmly established in the original show.
You were caught in the middle.
Someone tries to kill you and you're the one apologizing.
You almost died, Vanessa, because of who I am. When you're able to be moved, you'll be taken out of the country.
I think I'll stay where I am. I knew being with you would be complicated. I made that choice. They could never take you away from me.
I'll make them suffer for what they've done.
I expect nothing less.
This is after Vanessa nearly died. She stands by Fisk even when she knows this could get her killed, and when she returns in season 3, she wants even more involvement in his life.
I don't want to admire your world. I want to live inside of it. With you. If you truly want me, share your life with me. Fully.
And she still stays with Fisk when it looks like Daredevil is about to kill him. She's the one that stands by and pleads for Daredevil to let him go. She would rather risk dying than leave Fisk behind. Why does she all of a sudden act disloyal to Fisk? Why would she change? What is going on here? And throughout this episode and this series, Maggie is nowhere to be found, even though Matt literally said he would go to her for guidance at the end of season 3.
In fact, Father Lantham used to help me with that. Help me see the errors of my ways. I could use someone else to help me with that now.
I'm a nun, Matthew. Helping is what I was called to do.
Maggie wants to help Matt. She wants to do what Father Lantham was able to do for him for all these years. Yet when Matt quits being Daredevil after his best friend died, she's nowhere to be seen. Even if Matt doesn't seek out Maggie, Maggie would seek out Matt. Yet she's a forgotten character, like many other important characters in the original show. This show gives me the same vibes as Star Wars The Last Jedi, Avengers Endgame, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, Sonic Forces, Spider-Man No Way Home, you name it. In the sense that the new material feels so disconnected with the old material that it comes across as not having watched the old material to begin with, or having respect for it. That's at least what it seems like, which should speak to the gravity of these issues. It's bad. Really bad. This episode will be one of the longest to discuss because it sets the basis for why this show is broken on a premise level. The damage done in this episode will bleed into the other episodes moving forward. At best, this singular episode is a 1 out of 10, and the quality is generally at this level in the show. I wasn't kidding about how this is 1/10 the quality of the original. A lot less happens in this episode, but there's still stuff to talk about. This next episode introduces us to Commissioner Gallo, someone established to be a beloved police commissioner.
Gallo is a celebrated police commissioner, maybe the most loved the city has ever seen.
When he appears on screen, he makes it very clear that he hates Fisk, even stating intentions to make sure that Fisk doesn't last as the mayor.
Makes no sense to me, this mayor thing.
How right you are.
Do you know who Samuel Vance was? He served for 1 month. It is my personal mission to make sure that your term is shorter than his. Once a thug, always a thug. See you around, Kingpin.
Establishing this makes even less sense of the Mayor Fisk plotline. If Commissioner Gallo is one of the most beloved police commissioners, then that's another influential figure that would speak out on Fisk and prevent his victory, and this is within law enforcement. Remember, Wilson Fisk has a reputation for being a cop killer.
All those casualties will be forgotten.
What appears now to be some sort of firefight involving the FBI transport.
Get you out of here, sir.
If anyone tries to follow, take them out!
All those casualties will be forgotten.
As far as the Mayor Fisk plotline goes, there isn't a whole lot that moves it forward in this episode, though a large focus seems to be on Vanessa's hesitation to be part of what Fisk is doing.
Your wife?
What about Vanessa?
Vanessa's resistance to being part of the narrative is hurting you with more traditional voters.
I see.
This pushes Kingpin to have a couples counseling session with Vanessa in order to resolve this issue and make her more open to being part of the narrative. But considering the discussion on episode 1, I think it should be very clear why this doesn't work on a premise level.
If you truly want me, share your life with me. Fully.
Why would Vanessa not want to take part of the narrative? Her entire motivation in Season 3 is centered around wanting to fully be part of Fisk's life.
Vanessa ordered the murder of Agent Ray and his team.
This subplot here is based on a misunderstanding of Vanessa's character.
That's just lazy writing.
At one point, this episode establishes that Matt no longer goes to church. It's like he ignores the Catholic side of himself because of what happened last year. But that doesn't really work if Matt regularly went to church to seek guidance from Father Lantom, and Matt knows he's at a difficult point in his life. He wanted Maggie to become that figure for him, someone to help him at church when he's lost and needs guidance. This was an integral part of Matt's character, and explains where much of his beliefs come from. So why is this show neglecting this? This episode has a large focus on a legal subplot involving the White Tiger, who defends an innocent man from being beaten up by two corrupt cops. But as a result of the fight, one of them ends up being hit by a train. Hector is charged for murder and Matt comes to his defense. While Hector claims he was protecting someone from the beating, the cops deny any victim was ever present. Now, one of the first things that should come to mind are any potential means of proving what really happened at the train station. Matt relies on Sherry to investigate and find any clues that can help out with the case. But I have to ask, were there any security cameras on the platform? If there were security cameras, there is a way to prove what really happened, and if that mysteriously got wiped off the system, that would be really suspicious and cast immediate doubt on the cover story the cops are telling. However, if there weren't any cameras at the station, that creates a layer of ambiguity. And if we look at the original Netflix show, based on the legal system in-universe, if there is no real evidence that Hector was unjustified to claim self-defense, then you can't actually convict him for murder.
And in the state of New York, I'll remind you that my client is not required to prove that he was justified in his actions. It's up to the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not justified in defending his life.
This should be an opening argument for Matt. There is no proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Hector was unjustified in defending himself. Yet when Matt is strategizing with Cherry, he never thinks of this, nor does he bring this up in court.
We're just not finding anything that says the guy is telling the truth.
You know I know he was telling the truth.
And we both know it doesn't matter if you can't prove it.
This already doesn't reflect well on Matt's character, but the court case continues in the next episode, so I'll talk about it more then. This episode felt slow overall in terms of moving the plot lines forward, considering how little was achieved in this amount of time, and much of this is working off really weak writing. There's not much merit this episode brings, so I'm leaving this at a 2 out of 10.
Why can't you just be grateful?
Goodbye, sir. I will not even dignify that argument with a response.
In the next episode, they specifically mention that the fight at the train station occurred on New Year's Eve and that they volunteered to work.
Did you say it was unusual for an officer of your seniority to be working on New Year's Eve?
I volunteered. We were assigned at Washington Heights, and a lot of the guys got sent down to Times Square for the ball drop. Well, we were just finishing up a routine sweep. The defendant, he just came out of nowhere.
Now, setting aside that the burden of proof is on the prosecution, there is another problem here. Regardless of if security cameras are present, if the cover story is that the two cops were assigned to do their jobs that evening, that must mean they would have had police body cams on them. That's been standard policy due to the fact that they're better for gathering evidence and leaves the police's intentions transparent. And in a city where the law enforcement was corrupted by Wilson Fisk and the people in power wanted ways to ensure that Fisk can't game the system, it would only make sense that the MCU would similarly push for body cams. It has become so integral that the police commissioner points out that removing this would go against the operating principles of the NYPD.
There'll be no body cams, no due process.
Sir, that not only goes against the operating principles of the NYPD, it's illegal.
Keep in mind that body cams are required to be turned on during arrests, and since this show clearly established that they're used in this universe, that means that the cop at the stand didn't do his due diligence when arresting Hector. He didn't turn on his body cam, yet for some reason, Matt doesn't bring this up. He doesn't bring up this layer of ambiguity in court, which is something that he brought up in Daredevil Season 1 regarding a self-defense case when the witness didn't see what started the fight.
The only other witness, a frightened young woman, that she only saw the struggle with Mr. Prohaska after it had started. You ever met a man named Nicky Torres?
I never heard of him.
Torres is a confidential informant. Used to work with the NYPD and used to work with you and Officer Shanahan directly. Did you and Officer Shanahan have an arranged meeting with Nicky Torres on the platform that night?
Told you I don't know him.
Yeah, you did say that. Thank you.
What did that achieve? Why isn't Matt bringing up the lack of evidence that Hector was unjustified to act in self-defense? Why isn't Matt bringing up the suspicious lack of records of the event, despite it being police protocol to record arrests? It gets even worse when Matt actually brings Torres to the stand.
Mr. Torres, is that what you were doing on the night of New Year's Eve? Were you passing along the information to Officers Shanahan and Powell?
No. I was home all night.
Previously, you stated pretty clearly that you were actually at the 168th Street subway station being beaten
When Hector Ayala intervened to save your life.
Didn't he?
Objection. Leading the witness. Also, Torres did not say he was at the station. The entire point of the question was to get him to say that he was. So why did you claim he clearly stated it before in the conversation? Did you hear it? Matt literally just put words in a witness's mouth in front of everybody, and he doesn't expect this to reflect badly somehow, or for the prosecution to highlight this to discredit Matt. Why is this his legal strategy when we've seen better thought out tactics in the past based on actual understandings of the law?
I'm a really good lawyer.
Yeah, I could say I'm Captain America, but it doesn't put wings on my head.
And then Matt decides to withdraw the witness as opposed to treating the witness as hostile and cross-examining him.
Withdraw the witness, Your Honor.
Did Matt suddenly forget the concept of treating the witness as hostile?
Like permission to treat the witness as hostile, Your Honor?
Granted.
Matt knows that people's heartbeats increase when they're under pressure of having to lie. Matt knows that Torres hesitated to lie as opposed to giving a quick and direct answer. Torres is clearly nervous right now and under pressure, so why didn't Matt ask a series of questions to get Torres to slip up on his own story? He literally does this in season 2 when someone is clearly nervous and lying.
How many death certificates would you estimate you've signed in that time?
I don't,
Probably in the tens of thousands.
So what do we have without Nikki?
Nothing. Our entire defense just got flushed down the toilet.
You have the law. Did you read it?
The prosecution has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client was not acting solely in self-defense.
He tells his side of the story, and he hoped the jury see him the way we do.
That's not a plan. Repeating your side of the story through Hector's words doesn't change anything. Cite the law.
I'm a really good lawyer.
No.
Put yourself in harm's way before. Many times. The question is, why? You intervened that night because you're a hero.
Mr. Ayala, yes or no? Are you the vigilante known as the White Tiger? Yes or no? Mr. Ayala!
What have you done?
Suicide prevention, this is Dex. Who am I speaking with?
Daredevil Born Again is a travesty of justice.
Sorry, that's hard. That's really hard.
There is too much wrong with this. Let's start with the most obvious problem here.
Would you like us to reiterate the terms of attorney-client privilege? Then you know anything you tell us stays in this room.
Matt violated one of the core legal responsibilities that a lawyer has. This could get him sued, suspended, or even disbarred, even if Hector somehow wins the case in the end. Matt Murdock should be facing legal trouble as a consequence of this, and on top of this, both sides agreed to keep this a secret. They are legally obligated to, otherwise this could unfairly bias the jury.
Allowing this type of totally inflammatory information will unfairly bias the jurors.
If Matt wins this case, it would be because he broke the law. How is he not in trouble for this? It even results in Hector's death at the end of the episode. Matt is done in terms of his reputation as a lawyer. Why does this never come up for the rest of the season? And that's just the legal implications this has. We haven't even touched upon the moral implications. This is not what a superhero would do. This is what someone like Mysterio would do. This is a flat-out assassination of Matt's character. He knows the dangers of someone's identity getting exposed from his first-hand experience.
I will never stop hunting Karen Page. Or Foggy Nelson. I will tell the world who you really are.
We're talking about superheroes who have enemies who will try to harm them, and the people close to them, the ones who didn't ask to be a part of this life.
You should have asked me first.
I know.
It wasn't your secret to tell.
Now, Ms. Walters chose to have her identity be public, but it isn't up to her to choose for everyone else.
Keep in mind that Fisk is the mayor who is watching this trial closely.
Mayor Fisk will be watching this trial very closely.
So Wilson Fisk now knows the identity of White Tiger, which puts him and his entire family at risk. And this is while Fisk is establishing an anti-vigilante agenda in the city that elected him. Matt didn't even consider talking to Hector about this as a means of forming a legal strategy.
What he's done as the White Tiger speaks to the strength of his character.
There is so much wrong with this justification. First of all, whether Hector had good or evil in his heart had nothing to do with whether he broke the law. And Matt would know this because that is the exact argument he made in Daredevil Season 1.
What was in my client's heart when he took Mr. Prohaska's life, whether he is a good man or something else entirely, is irrelevant. These questions of good and evil, as important as they are, have no place in a court of law.
So even if Hector has done good things in the past, even if you like the person on trial, that does not mean he didn't commit an illegal act. He set up the opposition to have the chance to say this. While the content of someone's character can be helpful to contextualize their actions, it should not be the only appeal that Matt is banking on because of how easily it can be dismissed on its own. Matt should be using the law to back up his side, and even if Matt believes the only way to help his case is to appeal to the content of his character, you do not need to expose his identity to do that.
Mr. Ayala is a decorated Army veteran. He has no record. He served as a CPA for 15 years. He's a pillar of his community.
This is without exposing the fact that he's White Tiger. So if Matt wanted to find ways to justify why Hector is a good person, why didn't he reach out to any of Hector's connections in the military to plead his case? Why didn't he ask Hector who he could reach out to, which would narrow down the list of connections for him? Foggy and Karen literally thought to do this with the Punisher, and Matt would know of this.
How long have you known the defendant?
I'd say the better part of a decade.
So you're familiar with his service in the Middle East?
Yes, very familiar. Lieutenant Frank Castle was part of a small team. The mission became compromised. Lieutenant Castle wanted to abort, pulling the plug would save lives. The enemy had set up an ambush. Frank went to the LZ all by himself, draw the bastards away.
Why didn't he order one of his men to do it? He certainly could have.
Not his style. All hell breaks loose. Frank against God knows how many. Next sound they hear is the helos, the helicopters. They get to the landing zone, you know what they see? Frank Castle, standing there, grinning.
And his men survived?
All of them.
If you had to sum up Frank Castle, how would you do it?
Frank Castle is a man who would gladly give his life to keep others safe.
And the crimes he's accused of today? Could the man you knew have committed them?
Absolutely not. Lieutenant Frank Castle that I know is a hero, man who deserves our respect and our gratitude.
You have to think about your family now. They need you.
Except they're at risk now because of what Matt did.
You caused it. You did it. You got no one else. You fucking did it.
Why doesn't Matt take any measures to protect Hector's family? Remember when he did exactly that with Karen Page? That was literally when he didn't have access to a team of superheroes he could call, or one that's literally a Hulk. Matt has numerous connections he could use to at least try protecting his family as they make the necessary transitions, but he doesn't even do that. Now, despite the problems surrounding the White Tiger case, I was actually enjoying Hector as a character, which is rare for this show considering the other side characters have little defining moments or characteristics to discuss, while Hector seemed to have more going for him as a character. But he gets unceremoniously killed off before we can learn more about him as a character. It sounds like he could have an interesting backstory, but we'll never know. He could have an interesting dynamic with Daredevil, but we'll never know, because he's dead. This episode is another 1 out of 10, and don't worry, it'll get so much worse. This next episode opens with Matt learning about Hector's death and his niece being sad about it. It seems this episode is glossing over Matt's fault in the situation. While I can understand his family not digging into the specifics of the law like I just did, therefore they'd be under the impression that Matt did what he had to do to save Hector, the problem is that nothing happens in the show that forces Matt to reflect on this decision and realize where he went wrong. There's no introspection whatsoever.
Whatever.
Fisk and his wife start talking about the affair, where Vanessa outlines her motivation to cheat on Fisk.
You were gone. I didn't know when or if you were ever coming back. You left. That was a betrayal.
Well, for starters, I don't think it makes sense for Fisk to apparently leave Vanessa like that. This is someone he's willing to go to prison for, in order to protect her from consequences. But the problem is that even if Fisk did leave Vanessa, she would assume there must have been a reason for it. Even when Fisk tried to keep Vanessa away while he was in prison, she wanted to return to Fisk. She wanted to be part of his life. She would hold out hope for Fisk's return. And what's even worse is that even if Fisk was so disconnected from Vanessa, how would she even know that Fisk specifically left her? He could have been kidnapped for all she knew. He could have been in a situation where his life was threatened if he spoke to anybody about where he was or what he was doing. She knows how dangerous his work is. There's a variety of reasons he could have been gone. That's enough for her to cheat on Fisk, thinking that he betrayed her?
Tell me about Adam. It was his hands. Beautiful sketches, I mean. He wasn't part of my husband's world.
That's not a good thing for her. She wanted to be part of his world. That was the whole point. I'm gonna play this clip again.
I don't want to admire your world. I want to live inside of it.
Matt has this short-lived subplot where he works with someone who is really impatient with him regarding a case where he stole caramel corn from a store. Matt does his best to lower the punishment against him, and then afterwards, he tells the guy that he brought it down to 10 days, yet the criminal is still dissatisfied and explains how he thinks this isn't a gift. And the show tries to make this a learning moment for Matt, where he has to concede this guy was right and that he was wrong for calling this a gift.
Look, I said probation and I meant probation.
Stop. There is no probation to be had here. This is the best deal you're gonna get.
You just don't get it, do you? Look, I've been jerked around by the system my whole life. Bad enough trying to live off food stamps, but when they cut it, start eating throwaway crap from supermarket dumpsters. And yeah, just once. Something that don't taste like crap. Something that tastes real good. So why not get the caramel corn? I like that shit and it tastes good. They're willing to spend 5 times more to lock me up than they're willing to spend to feed me. And you come in here and tell me that that's a gift? That I should thank you?
You're right.
But the problem I have with this subplot is that all it does is list out problems, but it doesn't offer any real solutions. If we're meant to have a moment of growth for Matt, there needs to be a different course of action suggested, or one that Matt realizes could have been done. Yet, Matt clearly did the best he could to mitigate this guy's punishment, and all he can really do is complain about the circumstances. The reason Matt said this is a gift for him is because the result would have been way worse if Matt didn't step in, due to the pages of records of this man's crimes. What is the message of this subplot exactly? What are we meant to take away from it? Yeah, the system can be really unfair, we got that in the original show, but we were also shown solutions instead of just being handed a list of problems. There's nothing engaging about this subplot. Matt then has a scene with the Punisher, where he gets directed to his secret hideout. Matt tells Punisher he could be doing more for the city, but Frank denies it while he hides in his cave.
You know, you could use all this. It could be a service.
Be a service, huh?
I mean, you could help people, you could save lives.
I see, I did that. Look at what it got me.
What are you doing down here? Just hiding out?
You want to go out there on the street, have at it. But I do not have time for your candy-ass hero shit.
Frank is apparently just sitting in a hideout, not doing anything about what's happening in the city, when he literally had this to say the last time he spoke to Fisk.
Next time I see you, only one of us walks away.
This is yet another character that should care about Wilson Fisk being mayor, yet he does nothing. He should be planning an assassination attempt on Fisk, yet he isn't even trying. He refuses and decides he doesn't want to go out on the streets, not even to find ways to bait Fisk, use some of his goons to get a direct location, not planning whatsoever to get rid of Fisk. Even though Punisher kills people like Fisk because he knows they will make people's lives worse. This was established very clearly with his character.
I mean, hold on, sure I can't get you anything else? Yeah, bondage, backdoor, grannies, or maybe you're in the market for something younger. She's barely 12. Haha, you like that, huh? Just trying to make a buck.
I think you're a man who can't finish the job. I think that you're a coward. I think that the people I kill need killing. That's what I think. You left. They throw them in jail. Everybody calls you a hero, right? They're back on the streets doing the same goddamn thing. I think that this world, it needs men that are willing to make the hard call. I make sure that they don't make it out on the street again. I take pride in that.
This conversation with Frank doesn't even have much to say. It seems like they're trying to revitalize the energy we saw on the Netflix show, but the problem is that Frank isn't even in character and the scene doesn't have much to say outside of Matt being sad about Foggy's death. This was another really bad episode. I'm putting this one at a 2 out of 10 as well.
Stupid, does not work, pay attention.
This episode is considered a filler episode, and I can totally see why. This is a 39-minute episode where very little happens. Matt goes to the bank for a loan, we get a Miss Marvel reference, bank robbers show up for a heist and take hostages, Matt executes a plan to save them, they all get saved, and Matt gets invited to dinner for a talk about making his firm more profitable. The summarization is so brief because so little happens in this episode, nothing is done to push any of our characters or the main plot lines forward, and I don't have too big of an issue with putting a pause on certain plot lines as long as they're doing something that adds to the story, such as the Nelson v. Murdoch episode alongside the Karen episode. These episodes serve characterization purposes and add to the character work moving forward. This episode is just a bank heist. This isn't necessarily a broken episode in the sense that it destroys characters or world building, but it feels very pointless.
You just hate fun. Just be grateful.
Goodbye, sir.
Filler aside, there's a couple problems I'd like to mention anyway.
Kirsten, call 911.
Wait, for what? Tell her the crime. Tell her what's happening. Alright then. At least moving forward, Matt's decisions are generally okay. Though when Matt takes out one of the robbers discreetly, he doesn't use the mask to take out the next guard. In doing so, he risks his identity to the guy he barely knows.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Remember when Daredevil cared to hide his identity?
You see my face?
Yeah. He's the one who found you in the alley.
You see my face too?
Yeah.
The Defenders even showcase how creative Matt can be when trying to hide his identity.
I just do. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. I need that.
Exactly what kind of a lawyer are you?
A really good one.
If you keep using that excuse every time you unnecessarily use your powers, it's not gonna stick. Just saying. Otherwise, I don't have many issues with this episode's writing outside of how it feels pointless. This episode is by far the least offensive by virtue of not doing as much as the other episodes have. While it's overall filler and slows the pacing of the series, at least it's not broken to the core like other episodes. For this one, I'll just leave it at a 4 out of 10. This next episode starts to focus more on Muse and his paintings all over the city. There seems to be a lot of focus on setting up this character, and to the show's credit, that's a good thing, as long as the setup leads to a meaningful confrontation and a set of payoffs.
I got a call from my guy at the precinct. Said there's a serial killer out there.
How many victims?
Upwards of 60, so they say.
Wow, that's almost as much as Loki killed in 2 days. With a problem this significant, I would expect this to bring in attention from the Avengers. This is a mass murderer and the law enforcement clearly isn't handling this, so clearly they need an aid in investigation. What's going on in the city that Kate Bishop can't get involved and call Hawkeye? Or Miss Marvel since her father works in New York? What's Spider-Man doing? Is he on vacation again? What about any of the Defenders? I'd find the situation more believable if there was more world building done here to justify their absence for this fairly large-scale problem, but the thing is, the most trouble this city is currently in, besides Wilson Fisk being the mayor, is the situation with Muse. If there was something more significant, we would have heard about it, since Matt would have full interest in such a situation like he is regarding Muse. And it doesn't help that Matt has connections to some of these superheroes, yet nobody is doing anything.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
In this episode, Matt decides now is the time for him to become Daredevil again. Considering his weak motivation to quit in the first place, it's not easy for this return to land for me. It's hard to develop Matt's return effectively when his retirement didn't make sense to begin with. He largely gets pushed by the loss of life due to Muse's crimes, but that doesn't work well as a breaking point for Matt when Fisk is literally the mayor. Matt's greatest enemy has found a way to win, and Matt knows what he will do to the city. Matt has seen firsthand how Fisk operates, so hearing about a new villain in town isn't going to sell that return very well. I get that this problem stems from the poor motivation for Matt to quit in the first place, though that should highlight the place where we should start looking if we were to find a fix for this story. Daredevil gets in a fight with Muse, which is the most we get as far as payoffs with Muse. There isn't much done to build upon Muse's character, though maybe the show is depending on later episodes to do this. Though I'm not super interested in breaking down the fight scenes, this part made it really hard for me to take Daredevil seriously. So Daredevil delivers a few blows to Muse, he then just stands there and takes like 3 kicks in the face in a row without blocking them. He literally just stands there like he's in pause mode.
He's just standing there.
And then once he kicks Muse away, instead of capitalizing on this opportunity, he does this scream in the air just to aura farm. It's like he's trying to look cool instead of prioritizing the hostage. This episode is a 2 out of 10 at best. This episode continues the Muse plotline, as it has more to be desired. Matt tries to go to Cherry for more investigation, but he refuses, so he goes to Hector's daughter to seek information. He learns that Muse creates art of people's faces, which will lead him to a clue later. Muse and his alter ego goes to Heather for an appointment, and this is the first time we get an attempt to explore Muse as a character, to follow through with their earlier setups. He talks about his past. It was really important that he brought up Taekwondo competitions and how much he hated it.
Did I ever tell you I used to compete in Taekwondo?
Did you enjoy it?
I hated it. Parents always wanted an athlete in the family. Competed in Taekwondo because they made me, and it was awful. But they wouldn't let me quit. I hated him. In the end, I learned a lot from Coach Lee.
Do you still compete in Taekwondo?
God, no. And all I ever wanted to be was an artist.
It's a little hard to invest in his motivation if we're not given a pivotal event that made him into a killer, or at least a set of circumstances that shaped his upbringing. Very little material is given to us, and this is after they just dropped the reveal of Muse's identity to us. They did this before we could meaningfully learn about and understand this character.
Be the person I am now, and it's all thanks to you.
I'm just the
No,
conduit.
you were the key. I mean, you've unlocked something in me.
We've seen one session with them.
The city is finally starting to see me for who I really am.
When does he ever reflect on this? How does he want to be perceived by the city? There's a variety of ways he could be seen, and the most public one is a serial killer who puts up art. It sounds like they're implementing filler dialogue for a villain just so that he sounds scary, but there's no legwork done to expand upon his actual character. I don't know what he means when he talks about becoming his true self. I don't know his true self, because we just met this guy, and he's giving some vague backstory about how he hates Taekwondo so much. I mean, knowing how to fight helps this guy be the sadistic killer that he is, so does he still hate it? I hate to sound like that guy, but it kind of sounds like this guy just became a serial killer because he got a bad experience with Taekwondo. He's just mad over a Taekwondo experience. We're given so little that this is genuinely what it feels like. Although there's a chance to expand upon this in the future, that's not what this show does. It feels like that meme where people claim that Mysterio became a villain because his work was named Barf, but actually true this time with this Taekwondo guy. Daredevil shows up and proves to Muse that Taekwondo isn't the end-all be-all in a fight, and the fight ends with Muse being unceremoniously shot down.
That's just lazy writing.
Daredevil didn't even get the chance to confront Muse in a meaningful conversation. He fought him twice, beat him both times, and the second time ended with him getting shot down, and there's nothing more to his character. This is the villain that they dedicated all that setup to? There's all this setup, but no meaningful payoffs. It's all about setup.
But he'll be back in season 2, you dumbass.
Yeah, because good writing is when I have to wait for it in the possible future instead of already consuming it. Remember when the original Daredevil used individual episodes to primarily explore an antagonist? From Fisk, to Frank, to To Dex, the original show did so much work to explore our villains, to give a detailed outline of their perspective, no matter how harsh or just messed up it is. Muse was set up, vaguely explored in one scene, then killed off.
Sounds hard. Really hard.
That's essentially what this episode amounted to. 40 minutes of wasting Muse's potential. Though it doesn't do as much damage as other episodes have, this one feels like a structural mess, with bad characterization from Muse. The plotline just rushed itself, only to end itself so abruptly. This episode is a 2 out of 10.
It's hard. It's really hard.
In episode 8 of Born Again, we start to learn more about Heather's perspective on Daredevil.
Muse tried to kill you, Daredevil saved you.
I saved me. They were both out there for themselves.
At the same time, we learn what she thinks about Fisk.
Heather, I'm serious. How do you know
You want to
him?
watch your tone?
Please don't tell me Fisk is a client. You don't understand, all right? If he's in your life, he is in our life.
He is the mayor. He's in everybody's life. Then he's
Heather,
got my vote.
you must see he's trying to use you.
I'm confused here. Did she forget that Matt Murdock was on the prosecution against Fisk in season 1? Their legal team proved him guilty of 5 RICO counts.
One RICO count carries a 20-year sentence. Fisk was convicted on 5.
And Fisk was sent back to prison in season 3. And he was a wanted man after he tried to kill a vigilante. And let's not forget that Heather believes the violence between Daredevil and Muse rubbed onto her.
That violence, it just transfers from Daredevil to Muse to me.
Does she not consider that Fisk fought Daredevil twice? Does she not consider why Matt was in favor of prosecuting Fisk? Does she not consider the fact that Daredevil has a history of being heroic? While Fisk had Bullseye impersonate Daredevil and kill a bunch of people?
All those casualties will be forgotten.
The strange part of all of this is why Heather would side with Fisk over Daredevil. Does she not find it strange that Fisk has his task force steal credit for stopping Muse, when it was actually Daredevil and herself that finished the job? Now, depending on what we learn about this character and her history, we could get a compelling reason as to why Heather is this way. But a consistent problem with this new cast of characters is that we barely learn anything about them. So I have no clue where Heather's perspective even comes from. Did she have an experience in the past that would have biased her judgment? Does she have some kind of connection with Fisk that we don't know about? I'd ask if she was actually evil deep down, but judging by how she visits Matt at the hospital to show genuine care, as opposed to spilling the location of Fisk to get an opportunity to kill Matt, it seems to me like Heather's love for Matt is genuine. Plus, she's been at his place many times, and if it was really some kind of manipulation tactic, she would have pretended to be on Matt's side regarding Daredevil and Fisk. We also get the return of Dex in this episode. Matt learns that Fisk arranged a transfer for Dex from protected custody to general population. Now, this should be very important to note, because from Matt's perspective, this is likely an attempt to have Dex killed because he knows Dex wanted Fisk dead for what he did to Julie, and Fisk would hate Dex for hurting Vanessa.
You know he moved Poindexter into general population.
Now that's a death sentence.
Matt meets with Dex to question him on if Fisk hired him to kill Foggy. Dex avoids the question, but Matt inquires once again. But when Dex tries to set conditions, Matt still doesn't listen to him.
Another night in here, I might never be able to answer that for you. What you want me to do? You want me to get you out? You want me to file an appeal? I'm bargaining for my life here, counselor. I can tell you, but I need to be outside. I don't trust you for a second.
So, maybe check for his heartbeat to see if he's lying or not? Dex is willing to be cooperative, but only if this saves his life. That is a fairly reasonable condition that Matt should accept because he doesn't believe in killing. He literally took Frank Castle's case because he was being sentenced to death.
You're talking career suicide. If we walk away, we're letting him die.
Fuck you!
Why does Matt stop his line of questioning with Dex? This is crucial for Matt. He can tell when someone is lying in an interrogation. Even if he has to discuss the terms of Dex's cooperation, that is still an effort Matt will make if it means getting important information and saving his life. Why does he physically attack Dex despite giving off the impression that he's a normal blind man?
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
This looks really bad for Matt's character. He knows general population will be a death sentence for Dex. He refuses to cooperate with Dex and use the law to grant him protected custody. He drops the act of being a normal blind man to smash Dex's face and frames it as self-harm. He does this knowing Dex was part of an agency for investigation, which makes it easy for Dex to put 2 and 2 together. What happens if Dex pieces together his identity and tells the prison that Matt Murdock is Daredevil? This does really big damage to Matt Murdock. Dex then uses this opportunity to spit a tooth at a guard to facilitate his escape. But what happened to the restraints restraints he was under, he shouldn't just be able to free himself if the restraints were active. And why is there only one guard surrounding him? You remember how they have a group of guards escorting him when they need to? Considering what Dex can do, this makes complete sense, so I don't know why there's only one of them there. His escape doesn't make any sense. Matt then arrives at the party and tries to warn Heather once again that Fisk is a monster who can't be trusted. Why didn't Matt take the time to share the legal cases with Heather? Does he not have them stored anywhere for reference? Did Matt not disclose the fact an Avenger literally fought against Fisk? Or the fact he was a wanted man after that? Fisk gets alerted that Dex is broken out of prison. With this information, he does nothing to protect himself and keeps the party going. He doesn't try to ensure his and Vanessa's safety, despite knowing that Dex is incredibly dangerous when he's a free man. And then Bullseye shows up to take a shot at Wilson Fisk, following up with his intentions at the end of Season 3. He takes one shot, but he doesn't follow through with more shots for some reason, even though he wanted Fisk and his wife dead. Why didn't he shoot Fisk again? He's shown to be a skilled shooter who could take out numerous armed men in one go. He's so skilled that even if he had just a few knives on him, or even just a pack of pencils, he could easily get the job done. So why does he just leave without finishing the job? Why does he shoot Fisk in the chest when Fisk is known to wear body armor? Why not shoot him in the head? He would have killed Matt if that happened. Why did he only try to kill Wilson and not Vanessa? Both of them should be dead in this episode.
But SK, this is real art, unlike Volume 3.
This episode is another 1 out of 10. This is one of the worst episodes in the show.
The whole FBI corruption scandal agent Nadim all that. It's why my husband was acquitted.
What?
It's why my husband was acquitted.
Get your special sock out, nerds. It's gonna get good.
You can't do this to Nadim. You know how much he sacrificed? How did the testimony Nadim made regarding the FBI corruption become part of the reason Fisk gets acquitted for his crimes?
Unsubscribed, blocked, and reported.
The entire point of Nadim's sacrifice was to prevent Fisk from corrupting the system. Fisk was the cause of the corruption within the FBI. Everybody knows this. Yet that's the reason he gets acquitted? So after that monumental payoff, with so much buildup behind it, this finale just confirms that Nadim's sacrifice meant nothing and achieved nothing.
Sounds hard. Really hard.
Fisk is still free to commit to his criminal empire and can become mayor of the city to make larger scale decisions. This explanation is both nonsensical and disrespectful given the context of the Netflix show. This also creates a problem in Hawkeye. Now, if Fisk was already exposed to be a criminal and the world knows this and rejects him for it, it's not necessarily an issue for him to attack Kate Bishop in this very public manner. If the world knows he's a criminal, I'd assume he escaped prison through illegal means, which still makes him a wanted man. But if Fisk was acquitted for his crimes after Daredevil Season 3, then he no longer has an excuse to commit any crimes in public because he wants to maintain a public image. So this show made it a problem that he does this in Hawkeye, despite the fact he wants things to be handled quietly when he wants to maintain his image.
Confrontations can be expensive. I prefer to handle this quietly.
This is just the opening line of this episode, and it creates several gigantic problems. And let's not forget that Matt's leverage against Fisk revealing his secret to the world and killing everyone he loves is the fact that he will go after his wife. This is why Fisk agrees to Matt's deal. If he is acquitted for all those charges because of Nadim, the FBI scandal, all that, then his wife would be acquitted too, which means Fisk gets to go after Foggy and Karen without any consequences and tell the world that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. What reason does Fisk have to keep this promise? He has absolutely none. Matt's identity should be scattered around the world before it even happened to Spider-Man. This alone breaks so many elements of character and world building, it's irreversible.
It's too much! Too much!
It's only fair it should benefit you too.
Dex was literally exposed to be the fake Daredevil that killed people at Fisk's party and was responsible for the killings at the Bulletin and the church. How could this benefit Dex? He was the most corrupt FBI agent of them all. Apparently, the FBI corruption is why any of the corrupt FBI agents are able to avoid legal consequences.
What the hell?
You want me to kill someone?
The case he's involved with would shine unwanted light in some of my business practices.
There is so much wrong with this deal. It's immeasurable. Let's start with Dex's side. He hates Wilson Fisk. He tried to kill him and Vanessa to get revenge on him after finding out that Fisk was responsible for Julie's death. So if Dex is going to be let out of prison and supplied with combat gear, then he would not keep his end of the deal. He would just use his resources to kill Vanessa and Wilson as a means of getting revenge. Why would Dex care about Foggy's death? In fact, he should want Foggy to succeed, because if Foggy does succeed, this will expose some of Vanessa's business practices. She literally just told him that while organizing this deal. This would literally harm their legacy if criminal activity was exposed. Why would Dex help them? Why would he change? And Vanessa's side isn't any better. What is Vanessa's plan if Dex remains in character and tries to kill her and her husband instead of carrying out his end of the deal? Why would you free one of the best assassins in the city who literally wants you and your significant other dead? This is a guy that can just grab a pencil and boom, you're dead. If Vanessa simply needed Foggy Nelson to be dead, why didn't she just rely on goons or corrupt cops, which we've seen them use in the show? Why does Vanessa assume that killing Foggy Nelson will solve everything? If Foggy is working a case against Vanessa, and he works at Nelson, Murdoch, and Page, it's highly probable that they know about what he has found as well. And even if they don't, they can still find out if Foggy saved personal files within their office space. Why is the plan to just kill Foggy instead of interrogating him on where his evidence is located? Why not hold a family member of his hostage as a means of leveraging him to comply? Vanessa's instructions are so stupid that her plan can be ruined by Foggy having files saved elsewhere. And Dex would never know that because she didn't instruct him to account for that. This is incredibly nonsensical. And if Dex is targeting Foggy Nelson, it is very important for him to know that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. Because if he doesn't know that, then he'll be less inclined to prepare for Daredevil. But if he does know that, then why would Dex target Foggy at a time he is out with his friends, with Daredevil? Why not wait until he's alone? And if Dex does in fact know that Matt is Daredevil, that is yet another reason for him to not carry his end of Vanessa's deal and just kill her instead. And we have another problem here. Dex could have outed Vanessa's name this entire time he was in prison because he likely would have been interrogated. Why didn't he tell people that Vanessa broke him out of prison and paid him to kill Foggy? If Dex was already planning an escape because his tooth was smashed, why not blurt out to Matt that it was Vanessa who sent him? He's already planning an escape, so why not put the hot water on Vanessa as well? Why didn't he speak up about this at the original court hearing? Or a year ago, back when he would have been incarcerated? Why was there zero attempt to bring fire onto Fisk's side when he absolutely has the chance to?
They're gonna go out there and hunt down not only Poindexter, but all vigilantes. There'll be no body cams, no due process, no warrant.
I mean, next you'll be condoning the use of lethal force.
Encouraging, Gallo! Encouraging!
That's literally antithetical to the law. What are you talking about? You're literally going against the Constitution in the most blatant and nonsensically exaggerated manner. These laws are codified on a national scale. The mayor of New York City can't just wipe all that away, especially since there are so many elected officials above the mayor that could hold him accountable for such acts. In fact, the public would see this as comically fascist and immediately drop their support for Wilson Fisk. Fisk is known to be cautious in how his image can be affected by his actions. You even have to push him when mocking the death of his best friend. Fisk has a very reasonable level of self-control when it comes to preserving his image. Just look at this heated argument he has with Nobu.
I understand your position. You need to understand mine.
I say it is a piss in the shit.
Sorry you feel that way. Nevertheless, my point is valid.
Dumping these plans in this insane manner would do nothing to help him. What if Commissioner Gallo recorded this? What if he shared it to the public and higher government officials? Why didn't he? He clearly wants Fisk to be stopped.
To seal the city, you need a large-scale, real and present threat.
Fisk takes this advice and decides to create a blackout throughout the entire city. And he's doing this so he can send his anti-vigilante task force after Dex, Daredevil, and all other vigilantes, while under the conditions of a sealed city. So, first of all, no. A citywide threat will attract the attention of Spider-Man, the Defenders, Kate Bishop, and other vigilantes out there, especially since all of them most definitely dislike Fisk and know he's up to no good. Especially since all it takes is one person to speak up about this, whether it be in a testimony or a basic interrogation, which many vigilantes are known to do.
Screaming that arm becomes a good one. We clear?
This blackout could attract the Avengers because this puts an entire city at stake. If anything, what Fisk did drew the most unwanted attention to himself, which is bad considering how the Avengers have unique powers or forms of technology that can bring them the information they need. Not to mention that this same city has a sanctum, and even though their sorcerers often focused on the mystical side of the MCU, they're still humans that eat the food that we eat and drink the drinks that we drink. They still rely on the outside world to some capacity, so if any of their activities were interrupted, they would be interested in this. And the sorcerers technically qualify as vigilantes. The Avengers did, as Civil War explicitly referred to them as such. I don't see why magic users would be any different. They're not government officials or under their regulation. So does this anti-vigilante task force extend to them too? Would this extend to any heroes that may show up to help, such as Spider-Man, Captain America, Hawkeye, Luke Cage, and so many more that exist? It cannot be understated that Spider-Man is known to have worked with Doctor Strange, while also believed to be the next Iron Man due to his connection with him. Spider-Man was an Avenger after Infinity War. Hawkeye was an enemy of Wilson Fisk, and he's one of the original Avengers. Daredevil openly worked with She-Hulk, who openly worked with Wong as well. Targeting Daredevil like this could incite Wong's attention. Wilson Fisk is potentially picking a fight with the sorcerers. This is actually nonsensical here. He doesn't consider any of these implications. How would a blackout do him any favors to track down people like Bullseye and Daredevil to begin with? Yeah, rely on a blackout to take down Daredevil, someone who could use the dark to his advantage because he's blind. Why does Fisk need to shut the city down in order to track Bullseye? He's a wanted criminal. Even Daredevil has interest in taking him on. Why not just sit back and let the two others take each other out? He just brought all the attention onto himself. Regarding the other heroes, I don't believe for a second that only Daredevil is available for a threat of this scale. There's literally crime all over the city as a result of this blackout. This would have to draw the attention of other superheroes. Now, if you want to make sense of the lack of response to the blackout, there should at least be some establishment of major threats to the city in the news, because this is a situation that goes on for hours. So even if Spider-Man is dealing with some small crimes, this big situation will draw his attention. It literally affects the entire city. So Matt walks back home in his hospital gown, and Frank is there waiting for him.
Thought this wasn't your fight. Got a phone call, changed my mind. You promised I was gonna get you out of here alive.
Then why were you at his apartment instead of the hospital where you knew he would be because you knew he took a bullet for Fisk?
Why would you take a bullet for that, asshole?
Someone was waiting at the hospital to kill him, and Frank would be camping out at Matt's apartment. How stupid is he? How did Matt even get here before the anti-vigilante task force? An assassin was sent after Matt, and he was walking alone from the hospital after the assassin went into his door. Matt would have had to walk all the way to his apartment and somehow beat the task force when they have cars. They should already be present at the entrance area. Matt couldn't have made it to the building. They generously gave him the time to walk in, talk to Frank, and suit up as Daredevil. We learned that this phone call was made by Karen Page.
I heard Poindexter escaped. Frank and hopped on a plane.
So Karen will return to the city and take action because Dex is out of prison, but not when Wilson Fisk is out of prison and about to become the mayor, even though in the Netflix show she was largely motivated by wanting to take down Fisk. This is a completely different character right here. They start talking about why Foggy was killed and what he may have known regarding Vanessa.
I think there's something in the motion he was about to file. I missed something back then.
Files have been in storage as far as I know.
What do you mean you didn't check? You mean to tell me that after Dex tried to kill Foggy, there was no attempt at an investigation for potential motive? There was no attempt to see if this would bring other sources of danger towards their firm? Nobody checked the files at the storage. It doesn't matter if Matt and Karen for some reason didn't bother to conduct any investigation. The cops investigating this would ask for information regarding this. They'd be questioning the witnesses, so they'd have to think about stuff like this.
Avocados at law.
Oh, you forgot that, Joe.
Avocados.
Avocado.
Spanish for lawyers, right? Foggy was really drunk one night and I was stupid. Somehow became avocados at law.
Thank you for explaining the full joke to us to every minute detail. Becomes so much funnier afterwards.
Due to the unique nature of the Red Hook port location, no crime was committed. Holy crap, it's a free port.
Exempt from the jurisdiction of the city. And the country, for that matter.
She could launder money legally.
Right. This is about the Fisks building their own city-state.
You extrapolated that just from checking the files that existed there since Foggy was dead. If they were actually interested in ensuring Fisk stays in prison, maybe look into stuff like this. They don't know why Dex tried to kill Foggy, who was involved, or what he was offered. He could have been anonymously hired by Fisk for all they know. But, of course, they don't check for anything.
I can't believe I didn't check what he didn't file.
Matt, don't beat yourself up, okay? We were all hurting.
Grieving is known to push Karen to fight harder, to make sure these people's deaths don't amount to nothing. What is this excuse? Later, we cut to Frank Castle, who I'd like to remind you is meant to be a highly skilled tactician who can perform assassinations that would normally require a squad of people to achieve. A twist in Daredevil Season 2 was centered around that idea.
Tell me who they are.
No, they, him. It's one man.
Now he's reduced to losing to a bunch of fanboy police officers because of an idiotic plan where he just walked right up to a bunch of officers instead of attempting to remain in stealth. He just went guns blazing while surrounded and left himself vulnerable. Commissioner Gallo has a plan to stand up to Mayor Fisk for all the crimes he's committed, and in doing so, he enters a car expecting someone else to be there, but then he sees a rookie who was recruited onto the task force. He knows he can't trust this guy, so instead of, say, leaving and taking a vehicle of his own since he's the police commissioner, he decides to stay in this vehicle with a guy that he knows he can't trust. If he's worried about this guy pulling a gun on him, keep in mind that this guy is driving all the way through and is the only person in this car. If his hands are occupied, then the commissioner could just prepare his gun and wait until they've stopped to exit the vehicle. This is also something that Wilson Fisk just didn't plan for. And to be honest, Commissioner Gallo should have just used his own vehicle to begin with to ensure that he has full control here. He knows he can't trust anyone in the police force right now. He just allows himself to be brought to some unknown location with Fisk and has no plan whatsoever. And if Fisk is going to do this extremely brutal killing, then why is he doing this in front of everybody here? Remember when he pulled off the car stunt in a private area where only his best friend is present to watch? Now he's just doing this in front of a group of police officers that can speak out about this at any point, like what we saw in Daredevil seasons 1 and 3. Even for evil cops, this is gonna look especially unhinged and might even put them off from even working for him.
Admire me, huh? You're a bunch of clowns, you know that? Think you know my pain? Think you know my loss?
If he has this many admirers, then why doesn't Frank convince them that Fisk goes against everything he believes? Outline to them why he's even called the Punisher. Why not encourage these people into trying to kill Fisk? If he uses Fisk's men against him, then he gets what he wants. This is a smart way of trying to manipulate them, which is interesting because he tries a manipulation tactic at the end to free himself. It really would have been an interesting conversation for him to put into perspective what the Punisher actually means to these people that are blindly following him. And I really don't think Punisher would be like, oh, you think you know my pain? He literally tells people to shut up about his family.
What happened to your family that day?
Don't you do that. You don't talk about my family, you got that? Just don't do it.
We need an army.
You have a Hulk. You've met 3 of them. Nope. Instead he settles for the 1/10 intelligence.
My Safer Streets initiative. Effective immediately. All vigilante activity is illegal, and it will be dealt with accordingly.
So does that include fighting Ironmonger, fighting a killer drone army, fighting the Destroyer, fighting an alien army, fighting Ultron, fighting Thanos, fighting Electro, fighting the Green Goblin, fighting the Lizard? I think you get the gist of it. The Avengers are vigilantes since the Sokovia Accords are repealed. The Sokovia Accords were the only form of government registration to be a superhero.
A great many people see you as heroes. There are some who would prefer the word vigilante. US-based, enhanced individuals who routinely ignore sovereign borders. For the past 4 years, you've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. The Avengers shall no longer be a private organization.
The Accords didn't even outright ban superheroes because the government recognizes their necessity. This was well established in Winter Soldier.
There are some on this committee who feel, given your service record, that you belong in a penitentiary.
You're not going to put any of us in a prison. You know why?
Do enlighten us.
Because you need us. Yes, the world is a vulnerable place, and yes, we help make it that way. But we're also the ones best qualified to defend it. So if you want to arrest me, arrest me.
The Accords were very likely repealed because this resulted in the Avengers losing an Infinity War, which killed off half the population. And if Matt's defense for his client and She-Hulk hinged on the fact that being superheroes or serving superheroes is not illegal due to the repealment of the Accords, then laws on vigilantes were largely reduced. Matt's defense for Hector is that he's the vigilante known as White Tiger. So that's legal now. How would Fisk convince people that they need to ban all vigilante activity in New York? Why would anyone believe in this? You're gonna tell me that Fisk's anti-vigilante task force will kick off Thor if he tries to intervene when New York is met with a threat? Or if Hawkeye even calls him as a favor, considering the fact that they're friends? Spider-Man and Doctor Strange very recently saved the multiverse. What happens if Spider-Man simply asks Doctor Strange for a favor because Fisk is enacting something that will affect Spider-Man negatively? No Way Home isn't too long after the Avengers in New York defeated Thanos and saved the day, and that was before the Accords were even repealed. We know this because they were directly mentioned in WandaVision.
But that's in direct violation of Section 36B of the Sokovia Accords.
Enacting an anti-vigilante policy would be met with serious pushback from the Avengers or other superheroes, and even prompt investigations into Fisk himself when he's a well-known crime lord. This is especially dangerous for Doctor Strange because his sanctum is in the city, and announcing that people like him will be met with restrictions will draw his attention because his sanctum's location is public, and if it's met with resistance from the law, that's a huge problem. It can't be neglected how many of these vigilantes cross over with other superheroes part of the Avengers, which means their connections alone will create problems for Fisk. You see how this creates a ridiculous amount of problems for him? This episode ends with the Punisher asking to shake this guy's hand through a prison cell, and this guard just buys this obvious trap and gets his arm snapped as a result. I truly don't know what he expected there, and I don't know why they bothered having Punisher get captured only for him to escape anyway because of a nonsensically written scene. Oh, because it's set up for the future, isn't it? That's what this entire concluding part of the season feels like. A setup for Daredevil putting a team together to take down Fisk instead of something actually conclusive for the plotline. It's all about setup, and I'm not kidding when I say this, but the story for this finale is a genuine 0 out of 10.
Okay, but SK, have you considered, I like the people who made the show, therefore, it is good and art. Unlike shows that I don't like, which aren't real art, because I don't like them, and I don't want to like them.
Oh, that's a good point. I guess I'm wrong now. No, but jokes aside, what a mess of a season. Daredevil has gotten even worse treatment than Spider-Man has.
Hey little man, how's it going? Yeah?
Just about each and every facet of the original show has been destroyed. There's no coming back from this. I am mad over a TV show. Season 2 can't save the story of this season, and I imagine things will only get worse. Nothing makes up for all of these glaring problems. This is genuinely the worst piece of MCU content out there. I'm not kidding. This is the worst the MCU has ever gotten. This season as a whole is a 1 out of 10. And if Spider-Man Brand New Day has any significant ties to what happens in this season, well,
light the fires.
I'm not looking forward to season 2 of the show. It's only going to get worse and worse. And while this first season shocked me, this next one won't, because as far as I'm concerned, Daredevil is dead to me.